The morning sky over Seoul changed forever when the shadows fell. Captain Hyun-Soo Park stood at the observation deck of the Korean Space Defense Center, watching massive alien ships block out the sun. The vessels were huge, each one the size of a city floating in the air. Their dark metal hulls gleamed like mirrors, and strange lights pulsed along their edges. "Sir? We're getting the same reports from every major city on Earth," said Mi Young-han, her fingers flying over her control panel. "New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, they all have ships overhead." Hyun-Soo nodded slowly. He had been expecting this day for years, but seeing it happen still felt strange. The aliens had finally come to Earth, just like the secret intelligence reports had predicted, but something about their arrival felt different from what everyone had imagined. Down in the main command center, Dr. Sora Kim was already working. She sat at a desk covered with computers and translation equipment, trying to understand the alien messages that filled the radio waves. Her dark eyes were focused, and she barely looked up when Admiral Jin-Woo Lee walked over to her station. "Any luck with their language?" Jin-Woo asked. Sora pushed her glasses up her nose. "They're using a basic translation protocol. Very simple, like they've done this many times before. They want to speak to our leaders. What do they want to say?" "That's the interesting part," Sora said, turning to face him. "They keep using words like protection and safety. It sounds like they're here to help us, not hurt us." Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow. "Help us with what?" Before Sora could answer, every screen in the command center lit up with the same image. An alien face appeared with pale blue skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, the words came out in perfect English, though the voice sounded mechanical. "People of Earth," the alien said. "I am Ambassador Thexlar of the Valerian Collective. We come in peace to offer you our protection." Hyun-Soo walked down from the observation deck to join the others. Around the room, dozens of technicians and officers stopped their work to watch. The alien's face was calm, almost kind, but there was something about its eyes that seemed very old and tired. "Your world sits at the crossroads of several important space routes," Thexlar continued. "For many years, we have watched dangerous enemies grow stronger in this part of the galaxy. The Nexari Empire seeks to enslave all primitive worlds in their path. Earth is next on their list." Mi-young looked at Hyun-Soo with worry in her eyes. "Primitive worlds," she whispered. Hyun-Soo held up a hand for silence. The alien was still talking. "The Valerian Collective has decided to place Earth under our protection. Our ships will guard your planet and your people. No hostile force will be allowed to harm you while we are here. You may continue your lives as before, knowing that you are safe." The message ended and the screens went back to normal. For a moment, nobody in the command center said anything. Then Hyun-Soo started to smile. It was a small smile at first, but it grew bigger until he was grinning from ear to ear. "Sir?" Mi-young asked. "Are you okay?" "That's it?" Hyun-Soo said, his voice full of amusement. "They're just going to protect us." Jin-Woo looked confused. "What do you mean, that's it?" "They're offering to defend Earth from invasion. That sounds pretty important." Hyun-Soo shook his head, still grinning. "Don't you see? They think we need protection. They think we're helpless," Sora understood first. Her own smile began to form as she realized what Hyun-Soo was thinking. "They have no idea what humans are really like, do they?" "None at all," Hyun-Soo agreed. "They see a primitive world that needs to be saved. They have no clue what we're actually capable of." Over the next few hours, similar scenes played out in government buildings around the world. The aliens sent more messages, explaining their protection plan in detail. They would set up orbital stations around Earth and patrol the nearby space. They would monitor for threats and deal with any hostile forces before they could reach the planet. Humanity just needed to go about their normal business while the Valerians kept them safe. World leaders responded with polite thanks and acceptance. They signed formal agreements allowing the alien ships to remain in Earth space. But in private, many of them shared the same amused reaction as Hyun-Soo. That evening, Hyun-Soo stood in his office with Jin-Woo and Sora, looking up at the alien ships through the window. The vessels hung in the sky like sleeping giants, their lights twinkling in the darkness. "How long do you think it will take them to figure it out?" Sora asked. "Figure what out?" Jin-Woo replied. "That we've been watching them for decades," Hyun-Soo said. "That we've been preparing for this moment since before I was born. That every signal they've sent, every piece of technology they've shown us today, is already being studied by our best scientists." Jin-Woo looked surprised. "We've been monitoring alien activity for that long?" Sora nodded. My department has been tracking galactic communications for 30 years. We know about the Nexari Empire. We know about the Valerian Collective. We know about trade routes and territorial disputes and military capabilities. The aliens think they're introducing themselves to a primitive species, but we've been watching them like they were characters in a television show. So why did we let them come here and offer protection? Jinwoo asked. Hyunsu's grin returned. Because they're giving us the perfect opportunity. They want to protect us, which means they'll be showing us their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. They'll patrol our space, which means we can study their ships up close. They'll treat us like children who need guidance, which means they won't be suspicious when we ask innocent questions about how things work in the galaxy. You're talking about using them, Jinwoo said slowly. I'm talking about learning from them, Hyunsu corrected. The Valerians think they know what dangerous looks like. They're worried about the Nexari Empire, about invasion fleets and energy weapons. They don't understand that the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't a gun or a bomb. It's a species that learns faster than anyone expects. Mi Young's voice came over the intercom. Sir, the aliens are requesting a formal meeting with Earth's military leaders tomorrow. They want to explain their defense protocols. Hyunsu pressed the reply button. Tell them we'd be honored to learn from their experience. As the three of them left the office, Sora shook her head in amazement. They have no idea what they've gotten themselves into, do they? No, Hyunsu agreed, looking up at the alien ships one more time. But they're about to find out what happens when humans say thank you for the lesson. 6 months had passed since the Valerians arrived, and Ambassador Thexelar was pleased with how well the protection mission was going. From his command ship high above Earth, he watched the peaceful blue planet spin slowly in space. 3 Nexari scout fleets had approached the system during this time, and all 3 had turned away when they saw the Valerian patrol ships. Earth was safe and the humans seemed grateful. The primitives are adapting well to our presence, his assistant, Sub-Commander Veltar, reported during their morning briefing. Our sensors show normal activity patterns across their planet. No signs of panic or social breakdown. Thexelar nodded with satisfaction. Good. I was worried they might have trouble accepting protection from a more advanced species. Many primitive worlds struggle with feelings of inadequacy when they first encounter galactic civilization. What Thexelar could not see from his high orbit was the incredible activity happening on Earth's surface. In hidden facilities around the world, humans worked around the clock on projects that would have amazed him. But the Valerians only looked for signs of danger or distress, not signs of rapid technological advancement. In a laboratory deep beneath the mountains of South Korea, engineer Taemin Choi held a piece of metal that should not have existed. It was a fragment of Valerian hull armor, salvaged from a minor collision between an alien patrol ship and a small asteroid. The Valerians had cleaned up most of the debris, but Taemin's team had managed to recover this small piece before they arrived. The molecular structure is incredible, Taemin said to his research partner, physicist Nara Song. Look at how the atoms are arranged. It's like they've created a crystal that exists in multiple dimensions at the same time. Nara studied the readings on her computer screen. I think I understand how it works. The material doesn't just absorb energy, it redirects it into parallel dimensional spaces. That's why their shields are so effective. Can we copy it? Better than that, Nara said with excitement. I think we can improve it. See, the Valerians are using a static dimensional anchor, but if we made the anchor dynamic, responding to different types of energy, we could create shields that actually get stronger when they're attacked. Taemin finished. The more energy the enemy throws at us, the more energy we redirect back at them. In another facility on the other side of the world, Dr. Sora Kim was conducting what the Valerians thought were simple cultural exchange meetings. Every few days she would visit the alien ships and ask questions about galactic society, history, and customs. The Valerians were happy to share this information, thinking they were educating a primitive species about the wider universe. Tell me more about Nexari military tactics, Sora said during one of these meetings, her voice full of innocent curiosity. I want to understand what kind of threat you're protecting us from. Commander Zixhal, the Valerian military officer assigned to these meetings, was glad to explain. The Nexari rely on overwhelming force. They send massive fleets to surround a planet, then demand surrender. If the planet refuses, they use gravitational weapons to destroy cities from orbit until the population gives up. That sounds terrible, Sora said, making notes on her tablet. How do you counter such tactics? Mobility and superior technology, Zixhal replied proudly. Our ships are faster and our weapons are more precise. We can destroy Nexari vessels before they can target civilian populations. Sora nodded thoughtfully. What about their communication systems? How do they coordinate such large fleets? They use quantum entanglement networks, the alien explained. Instantaneous communication across any distance. Very advanced for a species like the Nexari, actually. We believe they stole the technology from someone else. What Zixhal did not know was that Sora's tablet was recording everything he said. Every detail about Valerian and Nexari technology, every tactical doctrine, every strategic weakness. All of it was being sent to human research teams who were working to understand and improve upon these galactic military concepts. Meanwhile, Captain Hyun-Soo Park was coordinating the largest intelligence operation in human history. From his command center in Seoul, he received reports from similar facilities on every continent. Humans were studying every aspect of the alien presence, from their technology to their social structures to their decision-making processes. The Valerians check on our major cities every 3 days, reported General Woo Jin-yoon during their daily briefing. They're looking for signs of distress or unusual activity. As long as our cities look normal, they assume everything is fine. What about our industrial sites? Hyun-soo asked. They don't even look at them, Woo Jin replied with amusement. They think our factories are too primitive to be worth monitoring. They have no idea that we've built completely new manufacturing systems underground. How new? Mi Young-han answered from her station. We can now build a computer processor in 30 seconds. That's faster than anything the Valerians have shown us. Our automated factories are producing materials that don't exist anywhere else in the galaxy. And we're doing it all using power sources that the aliens can't even detect. Hyun-soo smiled. And they think we're primitive. The truth was that humans had learned more about advanced technology in 6 months than most species learned in 6 centuries. But this wasn't because humans were naturally smarter than other species. It was because humans approached learning differently than anyone else in the galaxy. Where other species saw technology as a finished product to be copied, humans saw it as a puzzle to be solved and improved. Where other species learned by following instructions, humans learned by taking things apart and putting them back together in new ways. Where other species accepted that some technologies were too advanced to understand, humans refused to accept any limits on what they could learn. In a research facility in Antarctica, hidden beneath miles of ice, human scientists were working on projects that would have terrified the Valerians. They had taken the aliens' faster-than-light communication technology and made it work in ways its creators never imagined. Instead of just sending messages across space, the humans had learned to send matter, energy, and even information patterns that could rebuild themselves at the destination. We've successfully transmitted a working computer to the Mars Research Station, announced Dr. Kang Soo-bin to her research team. Travel time was instantaneous. The computer assembled itself perfectly and is now online. Her colleague, Dr. Park Min-ho, shook his head in wonder. The Valerians use this technology to talk to each other. We're using it to move our entire civilization across space in an instant. Above Earth, Ambassador Thexelar continued his regular reports to the Valerian High Command. Earth remains peaceful and secure, he transmitted. The humans show appropriate gratitude for our protection. They ask many questions about galactic civilization, which shows healthy curiosity about the wider universe. I recommend continuing the protection mission indefinitely. What he should have reported was that the humans were asking questions with the intensity of researchers, not the curiosity of children. They wanted to know how things worked, not just what they did. They asked follow-up questions that showed they were thinking about improvements, not just understanding. And they had a disturbing habit of taking simple explanations and somehow turning them into complex new theories. But Thexlar had protected many primitive worlds before, and he thought he understood how such species behaved. They were grateful, curious, and eager to learn about the galaxy. They were not supposed to be capable of taking advanced alien technology and making it better in a matter of months. As the 6-month mark passed, human scientists around the world were celebrating breakthroughs that would have taken the Valerians decades to achieve. Human engineers were building machines that operated on principles the aliens had never considered. Human strategists were developing plans that accounted for galactic politics the Valerians thought were too complex for primitive minds to understand. And in his command center in Seoul, Captain Hyun-Soo Park was looking at reports that made him grin the same way he had on the day the aliens arrived. "Sir," Mi-young said, "we've just received confirmation from all continental facilities. Phase 1 is complete. All research objectives met? Exceeded, sir. We now understand Valerian technology better than they do. We've reverse-engineered everything they've shown us and improved it. We're ready to move to Phase 2. Hyun-Soo nodded slowly. Phase 2 would be more dangerous. It would require taking actions that might attract the aliens' attention. But it was necessary if humanity was going to be ready for what was coming, because the humans had learned something from their intelligence gathering that the Valerians didn't know. The Nexari Empire was planning more than just a scouting mission to Earth. They were preparing for a full invasion, and they had new allies who made them much more dangerous than the Valerians realized. The aliens thought they were protecting a primitive world from a known threat. They had no idea they were about to witness the birth of the galaxy's newest and most dangerous civilization. The warning came at dawn. Valerian sensors detected a massive fleet approaching the edge of Earth's solar system. 50 Nexari warships, each one the size of a small moon. Ambassador Thexlar immediately ordered his forces to high alert and sent urgent messages to the Valerian High Command requesting reinforcements. "This is exactly what we expected," Thexlar told his officers during an emergency briefing. "The Nexari have finally decided to test our resolve. They think they can overwhelm our defenses with superior numbers." Sub-Commander Veltar studied the tactical displays. "Our patrol fleet consists of 12 ships. The odds are not favorable." "Numbers are not everything," Thexlar replied confidently. "Valerian technology is far superior to anything the Nexari possess. We will demonstrate why the collective has protected so many worlds successfully." In the Korean Space Defense Center, Captain Hyun-Soo Park received the same sensor readings from Earth's hidden monitoring stations. But unlike the Valerians, the humans had been tracking this Nexari fleet for weeks as it moved through distant star systems. They knew something the aliens did not. "The fleet composition is wrong," Admiral Jinwoo Lee said, studying the data with a frown. 50 ships is too many for a normal invasion. The Nexari usually send 10 or 15 vessels to overwhelm primitive defenses. Why would they need 50 ships to attack a world protected by 12 Valerian patrol vessels? Mi-young Han looked up from her analysis station. "Because it's not really an invasion fleet, sir. Look at the ship types. Half of them are old vessels, some barely functional. This is meant to be a distraction." "A distraction from what?" Dr. Sora Kim answered from her communication station. "From the real attack. Our deep space sensors are picking up smaller Nexari ships approaching from 17 different directions. They're using stealth technology and planning to land directly on Earth's surface while the Valerians are busy fighting the main fleet." Hyun-Soo nodded grimly. The Nexari had learned from previous encounters with Valerian defenders. Instead of trying to fight their way through the alien patrol ships, they were planning to bypass them completely. It was actually a clever strategy, except that they had no idea humans could detect their stealth ships. "How long until the main fleet arrives?" he asked. 6 hours, Mi-young replied. "The stealth ships will reach Earth's atmosphere in 4 hours. And the Valerians have no idea about the stealth attack?" "None. Their sensors are focused on the main fleet. They're preparing for a traditional space battle." Hyun-Soo turned to Admiral Jinwoo. "Signal all facilities. Activate Phase 2 protocols. It's time to let the galaxy see what humans can really do." Above Earth, the Valerian ships moved into defensive formation near the moon. Ambassador Thexlar felt confident in his strategy. The Nexari fleet would have to approach through the narrow space between Earth and Luna, where his ships could use the gravity wells to their advantage. It would be a classic defensive engagement, the kind Valerian commanders had won hundreds of times before. "Ambassador," came a transmission from the planet below. "This is Admiral Jinwoo Lee of Earth Defense Command. We request permission to assist in the defense of our world." Thexlar was touched by the offer, but he politely declined. "We appreciate your courage, Admiral Lee, but this is precisely why the collective is here. Your primitive weapons would be ineffective against Nexari armor, and we cannot risk human casualties. Please remain in your planetary defenses while we handle this threat." "Understood, Ambassador. We'll stay ready in case you need us." What Thexelar did not realize was that Admiral Jinwoo was not asking for permission to help with the space battle. He was asking for permission to defend Earth from the real attack that was coming. 4 hours later, the first Nexari stealth ships entered Earth's atmosphere. They were small, fast vessels designed to land commando teams in remote locations. From there, the teams would capture key installations and hold them until the main fleet could break through the Valyrian defenses. It was a sound plan that had worked on dozens of other protected worlds. The first stealth ship aimed for the mountains of Tibet, planning to establish a base in the isolated peaks. As it descended through the clouds, its sensors detected no defensive installations, no military presence, nothing but empty wilderness. The Nexari commander was pleased. Humans were even more primitive than the reports had suggested. Then the mountain opened up. What the Nexari had thought was solid rock was actually a massive camouflaged installation. Powerful energy beams lanced out from hidden emplacements, striking the stealth ship with weapons that made Valyrian technology look like children's toys. The ship was destroyed so quickly that it didn't even have time to send a distress signal. Similar scenes played out around the globe. Stealth ships approaching the Amazon rainforest were met by defensive systems hidden in the trees. Ships targeting the Australian outback found themselves facing weapons that emerged from what looked like ordinary sand dunes. Ships descending toward the Sahara Desert discovered that the humans had turned the entire region into a massive defensive network. In the space of 30 minutes, all 17 stealth ships were eliminated with surgical precision. Not a single Nexari soldier reached the ground alive. Captain Hyun-Soo Park watched the defensive engagement from his command center, but his attention was focused on the tactical displays showing Earth's hidden capabilities. Around the planet, massive installations were powering up, their energy signatures finally becoming visible to anyone who cared to look. All surface installations are online, Myung reported. Global Defense Network is fully operational. Orbital platforms. Activating now, sir. Above Earth, invisible to the naked eye but suddenly very visible to sensors, dozens of human spacecraft began to materialize. They had been there all along, hidden by technology that made Nexari stealth systems look primitive. These were not converted civilian vessels or hastily assembled fighters. These were purpose-built warships, sleek and deadly, incorporating the best features of Valyrian technology, combined with uniquely human innovations. The Valyrian patrol fleet, still moving toward their defensive positions near the moon, suddenly detected massive energy readings from Earth itself. Ambassador Thexelar stared at his sensor displays in shock. The readings showed defensive installations that rivaled anything in Valyrian space, weapons that operated on principles he didn't recognize, and spacecraft that seemed to violate several basic laws of physics. "How is this possible?" he whispered. His question was answered when the human fleet moved into action. The ships accelerated at impossible speeds, reaching the outer edges of the solar system in minutes instead of hours. They met the incoming Nexari fleet before the aliens were even close to Earth, moving with coordination and precision that spoke of years of training and preparation. The battle was brief and one-sided. Human weapons tore through Nexari shields like they were made of paper. Human ships dodged return fire with movements that seemed almost supernatural. Within an hour, the entire 50-ship Nexari fleet was either destroyed or retreating in panic. Dr. Sora Kim's voice came over the communication system, calm and professional. "Ambassador Thexelar, this is Dr. Kim on Earth. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We appreciate your willingness to defend our world, but as you can see, we have the situation well in hand." Thexelar stared at the tactical displays showing the aftermath of the battle. Human ships were already beginning cleanup operations, salvaging useful materials from the Nexari wrecks with an efficiency that spoke of long practice. The planet below showed defensive installations that covered every continent, weapons that could have held off a fleet 10 times the size of what the Nexari had sent. "How long?" he finally managed to ask. "How long have you possessed this capability?" "That's an interesting question," Sora replied. "It depends on what you mean by possess. We've had the theoretical knowledge for decades. We've had the practical ability for months, but we've had the materials and infrastructure to actually build these systems for about 6 months. Funny how that worked out." The implications hit Thexelar like a physical blow. The humans had not just been preparing to defend themselves. They had been learning from the Valyrian presence, studying every piece of technology, every tactical doctrine, every strategic principle his people had shown them, and somehow, impossibly, they had taken all that knowledge and made it better. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked. Captain Hyun-Soo Park's voice joined the conversation. "Because you didn't ask the right questions, Ambassador. You asked if we needed protection. You asked if we understood the dangers of the galaxy. You asked if we were grateful for your help. But you never asked if we were capable of protecting ourselves. We assumed. You assumed we were primitive." Hyun-Soo interrupted, not unkindly, "And in many ways we are. We've never built a galactic empire. We've never conquered other worlds. We've never even left our own solar system in significant numbers. But you made one mistake in your assumption." "What mistake?" "You thought primitive meant helpless. You thought that because we hadn't done something we couldn't do it. You didn't realize that sometimes the most dangerous species is the one that's been watching and learning, while everyone else assumed they weren't worth watching." As the last of the human ships returned, 3 days after the Nexari defeat, Ambassador Thexlar received an invitation that changed everything he thought he knew about humanity. Dr. Sora Kim contacted him personally, her voice warm and friendly as always, but with an undertone that suggested this conversation would be different from their previous cultural exchanges. "Ambassador, would you like to visit some of our industrial facilities? I think it's time you understood what you've been protecting all these months." Thexlar accepted immediately. He needed to understand how the humans had developed such advanced technology so quickly. As a senior diplomat with decades of experience with primitive species, he thought he knew what to expect. Perhaps the humans had found some ancient alien artifacts. Perhaps they had been hiding a small group of scientists who were more advanced than the rest of their species. What he found instead challenged everything he believed about how civilization developed. The first facility Sora showed him was located in what appeared to be an ordinary mountain valley in Korea. From the outside, it looked like a simple research complex, the kind of installation that might study weather patterns or geological formations. But when the massive doors opened and Thexlar stepped inside, he found himself in a space that seemed to extend far beyond what the mountain could possibly contain. "Dimensional expansion technology," Sora explained casually, noticing his confusion. "We borrowed the concept from your cargo bay designs, but we made some improvements. This facility is actually about 50 times larger than it appears from outside." Engineer Taemin Choi was waiting for them in the main production area. He looked tired but excited, like someone who had been working on fascinating problems for months without proper sleep. Around him, machines moved with purpose and precision, building complex devices that Thexlar could not immediately identify. "What are they making?" the ambassador asked. "Starships," Taemin replied simply. "We can build a fully functional interstellar vessel in about 6 hours now. Would you like to watch?" Before Thexlar could answer, Taemin activated a control panel. The machines around them shifted into new configurations, and raw materials began flowing through processing systems that seemed to reshape matter at the molecular level. What the ambassador witnessed over the next few hours defied everything he understood about manufacturing. The humans were not just building ships, they were growing them. The manufacturing process resembled biology more than engineering, with components that assembled themselves in systems that evolved during construction to become more efficient. The materials being used were not metals or ceramics, but substances that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "How is this possible?" Thexlar whispered, watching a fusion reactor materialize from what looked like empty space. "We studied your dimensional anchor technology," Taemin explained, "but we realized you were thinking about it backward. Instead of anchoring objects in one dimension to prevent them from shifting, we anchor them in multiple dimensions to give them properties that shouldn't exist. This hull material, for example, is technically impossible according to normal physics. It's harder than diamond, but lighter than air, and it gets stronger when you try to damage it." The finished starship was unlike anything in Thexlar's experience. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, with surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like liquid while remaining perfectly solid. When Taemin activated its test systems, the energy readings made the ambassador take several steps backward. "The power source is based on your fusion designs," Taemin continued, "but we've made it about 1,000 times more efficient by folding the reaction through dimensional space. And the propulsion system?" He smiled apologetically. "Well, let's just say it doesn't follow traditional rules about maximum velocity. The next facility Sora showed him was even more disturbing. Dr. Nara Song met them at the entrance to what she called the Communication Research Center. It was located in Antarctica, hidden beneath miles of ice that turned out to be an elaborate camouflage system. "We've been working on improvements to galactic communication networks," Nara explained as she led them through corridors filled with equipment that hummed with barely contained energy. "Your quantum entanglement systems were a good starting point, but they had some obvious limitations." "Limitations?" Thexler asked. The Valerian Communication Network was considered one of the greatest achievements of galactic civilization. Messages could be sent instantly across any distance, allowing real-time coordination between fleets separated by thousands of light years. "You can only send information," Nara said. "We wondered why you were limiting yourselves like that. Energy is just organized information, right? And matter is just organized energy. So we built a system that can send anything." She led them to a demonstration chamber where two identical platforms faced each other across a room. On one platform sat a complex computer, its lights blinking as it processed data. Nara activated a control panel, and the computer simply vanished. A moment later, it appeared on the second platform, still running, still processing the same data as if nothing had happened. "We just transmitted that computer to our research station on Mars," Nara explained. Travel time was 0. The computer was completely disassembled at the quantum level, transmitted as an information pattern, and rebuilt perfectly at the destination. "We've tested it with everything from simple tools to living plants. Everything arrives in perfect condition." Thexler stared at the empty platform where the computer had been. "You can transport matter instantly across interstellar distances." "That's just the beginning," Nara said with enthusiasm. "We can also transmit energy patterns that don't exist as matter. Thoughts, memories, even abstract concepts like mathematical theorems. We've created a network that doesn't just connect our facilities, it connects our minds. Any human researcher can instantly share their knowledge with any other human researcher, anywhere in the galaxy." The final facility was the most shocking. Hidden beneath what appeared to be an ordinary city, Captain Hyun-Soo Park showed Thexlar the Strategic Planning Center. Here, human analysts worked with information systems that processed data faster than Valerian computers, solving problems that had puzzled galactic civilization for centuries. "We've been studying your historical records," Hyun-Soo explained, leading the ambassador through rooms filled with holographic displays showing star maps, trade routes, and military positions. "Your species has been spacefaring for 12,000 years. You've accumulated vast amounts of knowledge about how the galaxy works." "Yes," Thexlar agreed, still confused about where this was leading. "But you've never really questioned whether the galaxy works well," Mi Young-han added from her analysis station. "You've learned to navigate galactic politics, but you've never asked whether those politics make sense. You've developed ways to fight galactic wars, but you've never asked whether those wars are necessary." The displays around them showed analysis that took Thexlar's breath away. The humans had mapped every major conflict in galactic history, identified the root causes of territorial disputes, and developed solutions that no one had ever considered. They had found patterns in trade relationships that revealed hidden connections between seemingly unrelated species. They had analyzed military strategies and found fundamental flaws that had persisted for millennia. "The Nexari Empire, for example," Hyun-Soo continued. "They're not really an empire at all. They're a collection of desperate refugee populations fleeing environmental disasters in their home systems. They attack other worlds because they think it's the only way to find new homes for their people. But if someone just helped them develop better terraforming technology, they would stop being aggressive," Thexlar finished, understanding the implications. "You're saying most galactic conflicts could be solved with better technology and communication?" "Not just solved," Mi Young replied. "Prevented entirely. The galaxy's biggest problems aren't really about territory or resources or ideology. They're about species that can't communicate effectively, can't share knowledge efficiently, and can't develop solutions fast enough to keep up with their changing needs." Hyun-Soo pulled up a final display that showed the human solution. It was a proposal for a new kind of galactic organization, based not on military alliance or trade agreements, but on shared research and mutual aid. Instead of fighting over resources, species would work together to develop better ways to create and distribute them. Instead of competing for territory, they would collaborate on terraforming and colonization projects that benefited everyone. This is what we've been working toward, Hyun-Soo explained. Not conquest, not dominance, not even protection. We want to solve the galaxy's problems by making the problems obsolete. Thexler looked around the room at displays showing solutions to challenges that had seemed impossible just days before. The humans had not just learned galactic technology, they had reimagined how that technology could be used. They had not just studied galactic politics, they had designed better systems of cooperation. How long have you been planning this? He asked. Since before you arrived, Sora admitted. We've been monitoring galactic communications for decades, learning about different species and their needs. When you came to protect us, 1 year after first contact, Ambassador Thexlar found himself back in the Korean Space Defense Center. But everything had changed. The command center that had once monitored a single world now coordinated activities across 17 star systems. The displays that had once shown Earth's defenses now tracked peaceful trade routes, scientific expeditions, and collaborative projects involving dozens of different species. Captain Hyun-Soo Park stood at the central command station, but his title had evolved along with his responsibilities. He was now Director of Galactic Cooperation, a position that had not existed before humans created it. Around him, officers from 6 different species worked alongside human personnel, all wearing the same simple uniform that marked them as members of the new Galactic Mutual Aid Consortium. Status report, Hyun-Soo requested, as Thexlar entered the command center. Admiral Jin Woo. Lee looked up from his station. The Nexari terraforming project is ahead of schedule. Their refugee populations will have 3 new habitable worlds within the next 6 months. General Woo Jin reports that piracy incidents in the Outer Rim have dropped by 90% since we started the economic development program there. Mi Young. Han added her own report from the communications station. Dr. Sora's diplomatic team has successfully mediated the territorial dispute between the Soltari and the Vekhan. Both species have agreed to joint colonization of the contested systems. And physicist Narasong sends word that the new communication network now connects 47 civilizations with instant knowledge sharing. Thexlar listened to these reports with a mixture of pride and bewilderment. 6 months ago, the problems they were discussing had seemed unsolvable. The Nexari Empire had been the galaxy's greatest threat, their refugee crisis driving them to attack world after world in desperate search of living space. The Outer Rim pirates had made trade impossible in huge sections of space. The Soltari-Vekhan conflict had been raging for 3 centuries with no end in sight. Now these ancient problems were being solved so efficiently that the solutions seemed almost routine. How did you do it? He asked Hyun-Soo during a break in the briefing. We stopped thinking of them as problems and started thinking of them as puzzles. Hyun-Soo replied, Problems are things you fight against. Puzzles are things you solve by understanding all the pieces and how they fit together. The transformation had not happened overnight. In the months following the Nexari defeat, humanity had carefully approached other galactic civilizations with an offer that was hard to refuse. Free solutions to their biggest challenges, with no strings attached. When the Nexari Empire received detailed plans for advanced terraforming technology that could turn dead worlds into gardens in a matter of years, they had stopped their military expansion to focus on building new homes for their people. When Outer Rim trading companies were given access to defensive systems that made piracy impossible, they had transformed from victims into partners in galactic commerce. The key to human success was not superior firepower or advanced technology, though they possessed both. It was their approach to cooperation. Where other species saw competition for limited resources, humans saw opportunities for shared abundance. Where other species saw irreconcilable differences, humans saw complementary strengths that could be combined for mutual benefit. Take the Soltari-Vekhan situation, Dr. Sora Kim explained to Thexlar as she gave him a tour of the diplomatic wing. Everyone assumed it was about territory, about who had the right to colonize those star systems. But when we actually talked to representatives from both species, we learned that the Soltari needed worlds with high gravity and dense atmospheres, while the Vekhan needed worlds with low gravity and thin atmospheres. They were fighting over systems that contained both types of planets. So you suggested they share the systems? We suggested they help each other. The Soltari are excellent at heavy construction and deep mining. The Vekhan are brilliant at atmospheric engineering and orbital mechanics. Instead of fighting over who gets which planets, they're now working together to modify planets to meet both species' needs. The Soltari make the world structurally suitable for Vekhan colonies, and the Vekhan make the atmospheres perfect for Soltari settlements. This pattern had repeated across the galaxy. Species that had been enemies for generations discovered they had complementary needs and abilities. Conflicts that had seemed ideological turned out to be based on misunderstandings that could be resolved with better communication. Military buildups that had consumed vast resources were redirected toward collaborative projects that benefited everyone involved. The humans had not imposed these solutions by force. They had simply made the solutions available and let other species choose whether to adopt them. The choice was usually easy because the human approach was so much more efficient than traditional galactic politics. Engineer Tae-min Choi demonstrated this efficiency during Thexlar's visit to the new manufacturing complex on Luna. The facility was a joint project involving 12 different species, each contributing their unique expertise to create technologies that none of them could have developed alone. The Vekhan understand energy field manipulation better than anyone. Taemin explained as they watched teams of mixed-species engineers working on a massive construction project. The Soltari are masters of structural engineering. The Nexari have incredible expertise in environmental adaptation. When you combine all these strengths with human manufacturing techniques, the result was a space station that seemed to grow like a living thing, its components assembling themselves according to designs that evolved in real time to become more efficient. The station would serve as a hub for scientific research, diplomatic meetings, and cultural exchange, all while producing useful goods for distribution throughout the galaxy. How long would this have taken using traditional methods? Thexlar asked. If we were lucky, about 50 years, Taemin replied. Using human coordination methods with multi-species expertise, we'll be finished in 3 months. The most impressive achievement was in the Outer Rim territories, where General Wu Jin-yoon had transformed the most dangerous region of the galaxy into its most prosperous. The solution had been surprisingly simple. Instead of trying to fight piracy, the humans had made piracy unprofitable. Pirates exist because there are people who can't make a living through legal means, Wu Jin explained during his briefing. They attack merchant ships because they don't have access to legitimate economic opportunities. So we created those opportunities. The human approach had been to establish manufacturing and trading centers in every system where piracy was a problem. These centers offered employment, training, and investment opportunities to anyone willing to work honestly. Former pirates found they could make more money building and selling goods than they ever had by stealing them. And because the centers were protected by human defensive technology, the few pirates who refused to reform found their traditional tactics completely ineffective. Crime rates have dropped to almost zero, Wu Jin continued. Not because we're punishing criminals more harshly, but because we've eliminated most of the conditions that create criminals in the first place. As the day's briefings concluded, Thexlar found himself in Hyunsu's office, looking out at a view that would have been impossible a year earlier. Through the window, he could see ships from dozens of different civilizations moving peacefully through Earth's orbital space. Trade vessels, research ships, diplomatic transports, and collaborative construction projects filled the area that had once been guarded only by a small Valyrian patrol fleet. Do you ever regret it? Thexlar asked. Revealing your capabilities, I mean. You could have remained hidden, kept your technology secret, avoided all the responsibility that comes with galactic leadership. Hyunsu considered the question carefully. We thought about it, he admitted. It would have been safer to stay hidden, to let other species solve their own problems while we developed our civilization in peace. But safety was never really the goal. What was the goal? Understanding, Hyunsu replied. Humans are curious by nature. We want to know how things work, why they work, and how they can work better. The galaxy is the most complex, fascinating, challenging puzzle we've ever encountered. We couldn't resist trying to solve it. And have you solved it? Hyunsu smiled. We've made a good start. But the wonderful thing about the galaxy is that it keeps growing more complex as more species join the conversation. Every new civilization we encounter brings new perspectives, new challenges, new possibilities. The puzzle keeps getting bigger and more interesting. Through the window, they watched a massive ship approaching Earth. It was a Nexari vessel. But instead of the dark military design Thexlar remembered from their invasion fleet, This ship was brightly colored and covered with symbols of peaceful trade. It was bringing the first delegation from the new Nexari worlds to join the Galactic Mutual Aid Consortium. They're not the same species they were a year ago, Dexler observed. None of us are, Hyunsu agreed. That's what cooperation does. It changes everyone involved, usually for the better. The Nexari learned that they don't have to conquer worlds to find homes for their people. The Soltari and Vekhan learned that they're stronger together than apart.